Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here this afternoon. We're here to discuss Thailand's role as an investment gateway into emerging Southeast Asia and the wider ASEAN region. You could argue that it's never been more important to take advantage of these opportunities because, as you've probably seen, there's a bit of a trade war raging between the US and China. So the risk is that this trade friction might be with us for some time, which makes the domestic and regional opportunities in Southeast Asia all the more important. But of course, the region remains still some way from being a fully integrated trading bloc with the kind of financial linkages that encourage faster economic growth. With me to discuss some of the issues is a very august panel. I believe, Khun Vilawan, you have a few introductory remarks you'd like to make, so perhaps we could begin with you.
So thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone here. And I'm quite honored to be invited to join all of you and to share our policy towards CLMV countries in the region, and also to share the same panel with this distinguished and very honored to be here. Thank you. So first of all, we are talking about ASEAN and we're talking about CLMV. I have to let you know first that ASEAN has been and always continue to be cornerstone for Thailand foreign policy. So in terms of the foreign policy, we have placed importance to ASEAN. And as you all know, this year we are hosting the ASEAN Summit in Thailand the whole year. And that's why ASEAN is relevant to Thailand. Of course, we start ASEAN, 50 years ago. It's economic policy that we are aiming for to have integrated among us. But of course, it's very essential for economic development, but stability is very important and is a prerequisite for any economic development in any region. And that's why ASEAN has born on that, because of that. And since it was born in 1967, we have been promoting peace and stability and accelerate economic growth and social progress in the region. And that's why ASEAN is there to done the job. And it has been achieving with these 50 years. It has evolved from loosely association of countries to become a more rule-based organization. Now it's been international organization as it has covered, all aspects of development, economic development, political stability, and also social issue that we are focusing on. And that's ASEAN has been growing that way. So I'm having you look at the map that I try to make it myself. This map represents the integration forums, economic integration forums that we're having at the moment. So you will see that Thailand is in the center of this, all cooperation. And as it has been, as for ASEAN, and now all economic developments has, to encompass Thailand. The reason for that is that, of course, geographically, you cannot ignore Thailand because we are center of, region and sub-region. And secondly, because we have very unique Thailand is very unique. Of course, we have a lot of problems within the countries, but we have a unique character and we have resources, both economic, that's important for economic, and also we have human resources and we have natural resources. And we are in the heart of this Southeast Asia. So that's something that development in the region have to take account of Thailand. And more than that is our foreign policy is to engage. We would like to engage, with our neighbor countries and also or influential countries, in the regions and across the globe. I think that's the key, and it has been, throughout our years of development that will be cornerstone for Thailand. That we need to enhance our cooperation amongst, different countries that are relevant to us, and that's the first thing that I like you to have some picture of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kun Chansin, we saw how Thailand is geographically central to the region. For PTT and for you, what are the key opportunities that you see in CLMV? Is it about using the strong baht to invest more in the region, or is there a way of using Thailand as a gateway to benefit PTT?
Thank you, Sunil. May I introduce something about PTT? PTT is established in 1978. At the early of 1990, we export our product to Indochina country, inland Indochina country. That means the oil in terms of benzene, diesel, and lubricant. And the first time we export. But after that, we invest. After we very success in export the product. Today we invest, we have a first step to invest in Myanmar. We invest in exploration. This year maybe 30 years. In exploration about natural gas in the Gulf in the sea of the Myanmar Sea. And we have a two exploration and production in Sotika, Yadana, Yatakun, and send the natural gas from Myanmar to Thailand. Maybe one day allow 1,000 cubic feet per day for our power plant in the west side of Thailand. That is one of the big steps to invest in Myanmar that time. And we not only in the exploration, we invest in the gas and LNG in Thailand and connect to Myanmar. And after that, we invest in the retail. In retail. Now we have more than 280 service stations for the oil service station in Laos, in Cambodia, in Philippines, in Myanmar. Yes, and this is one of our investment in exploration. This is our natural gas pipeline connect to Myanmar and connect to Malaysia in the JDA Joint Development Area. And this is LNG tank. We will be the one of the center of LNG in Indochina. And our footprint in Asia in oil business. We have our service station, our lubricant, LPG, and Amazon, the retail station in more than 6 countries in Asia. We step from that time in 1990, I think 1995, have a first step to the invest in service station there. Now today we have more than 280 service stations and more than 200 Amazon in Asia country. And this is our progress, and we still invest in this region because this region maybe the GDP per capita will be increased every year, and in terms of the facility, the Bangkok Bank and a lot of Thai bank invest in this region, and at this time a lot of logistics very good we have bridge between the country, yeah. And this is one of the GDP growth in ASEAN country. That is why PTT still expand and invest our business in ASEAN.
It's interesting you mentioned Myanmar first. Is that the country which you feel offers the most opportunity for you in emerging Southeast Asia?
We think we exhibit in Laos, we still invest in the hydropower. And maybe we send the electric to Thailand in the northeastern of Thailand. And maybe COD, commercial operation, in maybe in the end of this year. And we still have a big investment in Myanmar, because I think Myanmar is a very good opportunity in terms of the power and in terms of the oil and gas in Myanmar.
How much do you plan to invest in Myanmar? Do you have a number? Do you have a number set aside for how much you want to put there?
May I? Big, but cannot tell you, yes.
You won't tell me.
Let in the plan of...
I won't tell anybody else,
yes.
I promise.
Thank you.
Kun Chartsiri, what do you think Thailand needs to do to take advantage of CLMV opportunities? From your perspective, at the head of one of the biggest banks, what do you think the country needs to do to take the full advantage of the kind of opportunities that Kun Chansin and Kun Vilawan have laid out for us?
As the Governor Kun Chansin and the Director General Kun Vilawan has mentioned, I think the ASEAN integration is probably the key point for growth and for regionalization. And because each country has its own strengths and capability, so the comparative advantage is probably at work at best, especially at this point. So Thailand is no longer a low-cost country. At the same time, our neighboring countries have abundant resources, natural resources and different markets. So many of the Thai companies are moving into the region. Not only the likes of PTT, SCG, Banpu type, but also TCC group and so forth, but also medium-sized companies also moving into the region. At the same time, establish a new supply chain in the region. And bring prosperity to those countries. At the same time, they also buy more goods and investment into Thailand. So I think the integration is moving forward very well. And I think that would be good for all. Compared to 30, 40 years ago, when each country almost about the same. So one gain is one loss, but now it's not exactly that way. It can be quite complementary to each other.
So, and what's your strategy at Bangkok Bank to take advantage of the environment you've just described for us?
Because we have some 33 offices in some 15 countries throughout the world, apart from London and New York, the rest are basically in Asia. So we have been working with customers in Thailand as well as in the region, whether in Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, and other Asian countries. And many of them are moving across the region, and we support them through our network. So sometimes we also do the business matching, making introduction to them, starting with the import-export, and sometimes joint venture with manufacturing and so forth. And also in the service sector, you see some of our customers building hotels, for example, in the Philippines, some in the food manufacturing in Indonesia, also many of them go into Myanmar, into Vietnam, and so forth. So I think we see greater integration. We also see some of our customers in China moving into Southeast Asia, and we also support their business in the region.
And within emerging Southeast Asia, which country would you pick out as the most attractive, both because maybe you're focusing there, but also based on what you can see your clients doing?
Each country has its own uniqueness. Indonesia being the largest of the ASEAN member with over 250 million people and the largest economy. And at the stage of development that I think over the next 10 to 20 years will be quite prominent with many of the natural resources. Vietnam is by all means at the moment probably the fastest growing of all the ASEAN members, and I think has very good prospect, especially with the demographic patterns and many of the investment that go into the country at this point. I think the Philippines also has another type of uniqueness, especially with their per capita income at 4,000 level and so forth. So they also, the consumption and so forth moving forward quite well, 4,000 to 5,000. So that's also changing pattern quite fast. Myanmar has abundant resources in all aspects. So even though there may be changes that still need to be going on in terms of the infrastructure, whether legal infrastructure and other components. But I think the country offers very good opportunities. So each one at different stage of the development and offer different opportunities. Cambodia, Laos in a similar manner.
Okay. Kun Vilawan, are there particular multilateral initiatives that you think will help Thailand to make the most of these opportunities?
Yes, and as reflected by Kun Chartsiri, is that development in each country in the region, in ASEAN, has been growing in different level of development in terms of economics and also in terms of social development as well. So what Thailand has been doing is that, as I show you, when I was at the Department of Economic Affairs, we had to take care of 20 plus forum of international economic cooperation. So, and almost 15, about 15 is in the sub-Mekong region. So we don't know that figure, right? Because I was surprised when I was, taking the job, and I thought, oh my, why we have so many cooperation that we have, forum of cooperation in the sub-Mekong region. So that took me to look at more closely of the under ASEAN umbrella. We think that ASEAN has been developing and engaging in so many issues. As I said, it's not only economic. Now we are focusing on the social and also, world political issue as well. That has been spelled out, to the ASEAN region. So what we're trying to do is that we like to focus, in the sub-region, because at the moment there is a lot of help and assistance, coming to the CLMV countries, and we have main development partners. We have Japan, we have Korea, we have China, we have US, we have Australia, and we have India. That's already have forum of cooperation with CLMV countries. So what we're trying to do is that we will look at this and try to reorganize. So we use ACMEC as a platform, because ACMEC is the forum for 6 countries. So it's Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam. And so all these 5 countries in the region already have this ACMEC for 20 years already. It's aimed for economic cooperation together. So now we pick it up when last year that we host the 8th summit in Bangkok. And we thought that we can revitalize ACMEC to make it work better in terms of helping CLMV countries to identify what kind of development and what kind of cooperation they are needed. So, and we are organizing a financing mechanism, because we think that in order to advance our economic cooperation or in some development, we need a very good financing mechanism, to help that project gone through. Although there's a lot of money coming into the region, but it's go to different, projects and things. So our ACMEC countries get together and try to figure out what is the priority that the country needs in terms of a project for development. And we have identified as a prioritized project for 5 for each country. So we have like 30 prioritized projects. And now we organize the mechanism toward that. We have established a fund, which we aiming for $500 million US, and Thailand already committed to put in 200 million as a seed money, for the fund. And we also have the parallel operations, which will be ACMEC infrastructure fund, and also ECMEC's financial for each project. Under this different mechanism, I don't have time to go to all these mechanisms, but under this mechanism, the aim is that we will identify project and we look at the project together, what kind of financing that we need, whether it needs a grant from the government, is it need, but we want to have more private involvement in that. So we want it to be PPP, private, public-private partnership. That would be good. And then we will look at our each development partners, and they can, identify, whether they are interested in the project, and they can, help us in setting up the financing mechanism toward that, whether, and that should bring about, the completion of the project itself and in the more sustainable way and serve the countries.
Two questions on the fund. When
Right.
do you think it would be up and running, and how big do you think it needs to become to be effective?
What we are thinking is that when we are talking about the fund, a lot of people will say, oh my God, because, it's very difficult to develop, and how much you need to have a vast money, in order to finance a project or not. We are not thinking about that. We're thinking that the fund should serve for starting the project. For example, if I take an infrastructure project, then the fund money could be used for study, doing the feasibility study, and then we can consult, with our financing Bangkok Bank, if interested in that project, we welcome, and then we will look at the modality for each project, what is served is best. And of course, that we are trying to establish the manager of the fund as well. At the moment, we have the forum which is called Senior Financial Official. So it's at the DG level of each country to sit down together and discuss. But in the future, we should establish institute to do this kind of job for us, and before we reach out to our development partners. And at the moment, we have 6 countries that already commit to become development partners. There are China, Japan, Korea, Australia, US, and also India. So all these 6 partners are partners who already have existing cooperation in ECMEC country already. But they will look at their strategy and their plan, and with the ECMEC country together, and we will look at the way are we going to finance this project, what kind of project that they are going to take up. So we hope that we will have some example, maybe 2 or 3 projects before we're going to have the next ECMEC summit in Laos early next year, maybe March, next year, back to back with the CLMV meeting summit.
Okay, Chansin, we've talked about the financing that the ministry is trying to put together for projects in the emerging Southeast Asian region. In the energy sector, where do you see the gaps in CLMV, and what do you think PTT can do to help fill those gaps? Is it about LNG distribution? Is it about power plants in Myanmar? Where do you think the best opportunities are for you?
May I have my slide, please? Let's see this picture about our natural gas pipeline and natural gas separation plant, and connect to the Myanmar and connect to the Malaysia. I think Myanmar and Malaysia is one of our resource, and our reservoir is very important for our national security, for produce the power plant and in Thailand. That is the base power plant in Thailand. And this is one of our big project. We want to develop gas to power in Myanmar, because in Myanmar maybe it need the power a lot. And we will develop one of the put and support our converter to convert the petrochemical and plastic producer in Myanmar. And we invest in the oil and gas tanks, big in oil and gas tank in Myanmar to do the develop our service station, our gas station, our retail station in Myanmar. That is our plan in Myanmar because we think Myanmar is one of very good future about the GDP per capita and very good in terms of the relation with PTT Group and Thailand. We have our strong point at that time. And this time I think the people we support the student for the technician student more than 7-8 years to come and join scholarship, our scholarship. We support the student that one. And now we really success about the relation and we prove everything we can do professionally in Myanmar. That is one thing. And I think in terms of in Thailand, we still have our excess supply about the refinery in Thailand. In Thailand, we have refinery, 6 refinery, and we can produce more than 1 million barrel per day. Okay, and we still have excess supply. Maybe allow after we produce the optimum, maybe we have 15% and 20% we can export. If we can export to inland Indochina, like Laos, Cambodia, south of China or Myanmar, that is our market to that country. And today is very good because logistics very good, and in terms of the custom system and the banking very good, better than my time. That is maybe 30 years ago. We have reached. We have not good in terms of financial system at that time. We have a back market about it. We have a problem with the exchange rate, everything. And now every country may be developed very fast, and the people is very high potential people in each country. That is opportunity.
I've heard lots of anecdotal stories about how hard it can be to do business in Myanmar. I can't possibly share the anecdotes with you or say who they concern because they're very senior people. But how difficult do you find doing business in Myanmar?
I think you need to fair to Myanmar, fair to this country. Maybe it's a step 2 transmission, step 2 set up the system and political system. But if you have good partner, the right partner, very important. And if you do invest for the interest of the country, and maybe you can stay with this one, interest the country and interest with the win-win position, you can do that.
Very, very diplomatic answer.
I can support the governor on that front. I think Myanmar, in many senses, is also like Thailand some years ago, but people there are quite friendly and also quite entrepreneurial, and they want to find their ways how to move forward and be progressive. Of course, just like Thailand, always go through some volatility, especially in terms of exchange and so forth, which Thailand has gone through those processes over the last several years. So we have some devaluation every now and then. But that's part of the growing up, right, because of the trade deficit and investment and so forth. So, but I think the government has done very well in managing the policies, economic policy and platform. I see the potential of the country quite a great deal.
Actually, one of the criticisms of the Myanmar government is that it hasn't produced a strong enough economic narrative and hasn't focused enough on attracting investment and opening up the economy. Do you find that? Do you see that do you find it difficult to engage with the right people and to progress your projects?
In every step in investment in all Indochina country and especially in Myanmar, we work with the local partner. We don't invest 100% by PTT. That how can we select and how can we join for the win-win situation? We check and we understand each other first before we go ahead and move. That is
Mr.Chartsiri?
For Bangkok Bank experience, so I think we support Myanmar in 3 different ways. In one, because of the financial system in Thailand, that overall we have a saving surplus. So the credit industry as well as the capital market, whether debt or equity, also has been quite well developed. So actually we help some of the Myanmar companies raise funds in Thailand, for example, and also provide their credit facilities so that they will be able to grow. Second, we also support many of our customers in Thailand selling their products in Myanmar, as well as doing some investment or some joint venture with their local partners. And the third one, we also work with the local entrepreneurs and support them with their business respectively. And these people are quite hardworking, and they also want to see their country moving forward. And you can see the spirit and the energy underneath. So I think it is coming, and I think the potential is quite significant.
I wanted to ask you about something you mentioned earlier. Looking at your international branch network, in the midst of this trade standoff between the US and China, do you see evidence of companies looking to shift their production from China to the region? And if so, which countries do you see as attracting the most investment?
I think the current US-China dispute probably is leading to a significant reorder of the supply chain in the medium term, so in the 5 to 10 years perspective type. And in many sense, countries like ASEAN will change significantly in this process. Maybe similar to what we saw in the 80s when the Plaza Accord and lead to many of the Japanese investment into ASEAN and many other countries around the world. I think this dispute probably will lead to many changes in the supply chain. And different countries in ASEAN have different levels of competitiveness. So immediate to your question, then I think Vietnam benefits a great deal because they need an immediate production, so that to substitute the supply from China or relocation of that. Thailand attracts certain types of investment, maybe more value-added type, and also how can Thailand be more like a hub for the region for certain type of services and manufacturing type. And I also see how Myanmar or Indonesia and Philippines also changing. So I think that part is moving forward, but the integration of the ASEAN is probably quite a critical point. And to that extent, what the Director General talked about, the ASMEC is also similarly. So if that the regionalization is quite an important part, and that part will even become more important. India will also be quite a significant player over the next 10 years.
It's interesting you mentioned Vietnam first. So do you see Vietnam, based on what you see from your network, do you see Vietnam as the biggest beneficiary of that supply chain shift?
We see many production movement into Vietnam from different countries as well as from its own indigenous investors. And also the consumption of the country is also moving up with the current per capita income. So the people also could spend as well. So different components are moving forward for the country.
Is the strength of the baht an impediment for Thailand to attract this investment? Its performance this year, over the past 3 years, makes it one of the strongest performing currencies globally. Is that something which is going to be an obstacle?
Of course, it's a challenge for our exporters to manage, but we have seen 30 baht before quite a few rounds over the last 10 years. But yes, it's not only with respect to dollar, but also with other Asian currencies that we have to make sure that we remain competitive. But on the other hand, with a strong baht, investing in the region also has some benefit in that process too. So, but I think the currency movement at the moment is still manageable. More importantly, how to increase the value added and the competitiveness in that process.
Kun Vilawan, the trade dispute puts the foreign ministry in a difficult spot. You have two big different nations to balance. How do you do that?
I think we have Kun Pimchanok. She will definitely give you in more detail, next session, right? But for us, I think it has been evident that this region is always in the midst of the international conflict between these big powers in the region as well. So we experience that. But what we have in terms of foreign policy is that we are welcomed, all these, because they're all our friends, for a long time for the region, especially for Thailand. We are having very open, policy towards, international relations, in terms of international relations, as well as, in terms of economic relation as well. So what we are aiming for, we want peace and stability in the region. We have gone through a lot in this region, and our neighbor countries, have overcome those difficulties in the past, and we work together. And we think we cannot, enhance our economic developments or whatever alone. We need to go together, and that's why that is a theme for ASEAN and even for CL, for the ECMEC, that we need to have a stability and a sustainability, both in terms of economic development and also in terms of social and people and to people development as well. So I think that's we try to have dialogue. If you see, we have in ASEAN, we have discussed on the idea of the Indo-Pacific as well. As we know, the Indo-Pacific, BRI, has already encompassing and influencing, and we devote our session of discussion to all these international issues, and we try to address it. And of course, like in South China Sea issues, also is at the heart of our ASEAN discussions. But what we are doing is that we respect, the differences between countries, but also we want to retain that, and we don't want that to interfere with our cooperation together. And I think that's very important, and is being, taking up in the ASEAN dialogue that we have.
Do you think the trade background is going to encourage a quicker conclusion to the ASEP process?
I think definitely ASEP, we have aiming to finish the main part of it the end of this year. And I think it's very important that it will reflect. I think one of is my own assessment is that, when we have CPTPP, which is already big, coverage as well. But I think ASEP is still very relevant, to our region, because it will address our close partner, India, for example, India and also China and also Australia and New Zealand, that's already partner to FTA with ASEAN. And I think it's very important that we need to have that conclude, and then it will be platform for our developments in terms of liberalization of trade. And of course, under ASEP, it's not only liberalization that we are covering, it's also the trade policy issues, for example, in terms of competition and whatever IP discussions, which are very important to support business in operating their business successfully and fairly in this. But as my experience, I have some experience of FTA negotiation. I think we probably need to have a very progressive way, because we're aiming for the very high liberalization, progressive liberalization. But sometimes if we don't achieve that, we can have, a phase of negotiation, as progressively. We can set time for renegotiate. There are certain issues that we cannot agree on, and that would be something that we can move forward, with that. But I think that needs political push and also help from the public and also from the business sector as well. Is that you have to tell the government, that is that what the business sector want? Because at the end of the day, FTAs and all this is just to serve all these businessmen and companies.
I had one last question for each of you because we're running out of time. Can we expect the trade war to be over next year? Can ASEAN prepare for the end of the trade war next year, or are you planning for it to last longer than that? Chansin, I'll put you on the spot first.
I think because of its impact to PTT, yes. And I think in terms of the ASEAN, we still have we call like the intra Indo-China consumption. But I think in Thailand we have a lot of product. One of the value chain and produce assembly in China and export to the world. And that product may be impact from the trade war. And that product may be related with our petrochemical product in Thailand. In Thailand we export more than 3-4 million tons per year to outside Thailand. That impact to business. But in term of PTT, we are, the performance 6 months is still on the target, a little bit lower than target, but not much, because we have a diversified. But I think in terms of the ASEAN, some country is still our market, like the Laos and Cambodia is still our market, and we still export. It still have a very good high growth in the market. That is we need to separate one, because in Thailand we are very how can we call, develop our refinery, our petrochemical more than 30 years. That is our strong point, and we can export. That is our market. It's still very good.
Okay, Mr.Chartsiri, trade deal by next year?
This is going to be a long process. It's a dispute between Jan number 1 and Jan number 2. But I hope that eventually in medium term will lead to the new type of world order where how different people, different countries can coexist and collaborate together. So I think that will be probably emerging over time, but it will take some time. Hopefully in the meantime, ASEAN would be quite a viable position to provide alternative in the meantime. Yes, we will be impacted, but on the other hand, there also be opportunities. And I think that ASEAN should have that good opportunity in the region. And Thailand also can play a quite important role because of its own capability and capacity, whether in terms of management know-how, in terms of the manufacturing capability, the likes of PTT type, and the market access as well as the capital market. So we could work with other members in the region to move forward.
Queen Vilawan, you get the last word. Trade friction to peter out, or will it last for some time?
Okay, I think it will last for some time. So I think we have to move on for ourselves as well. We cannot wait and to see what happens. But I think we have to be very innovative, among ourselves, ASEAN and also CLMV, to enhance our, intra consumption and also, development of ourselves, where it's give time for us, to look at ourselves and try to develop ourselves, in order to be competitive in this very complex, and I'm sure it will be more complex international economic orders, as Kun Chartsiri said.
Kun Vilawan, Kun Chartsiri, Kun Chansin, thank you very much indeed. Very nice discussion. Thank you.